dictionary definition of music is the art of arranging sounds in time through the elements of melody, harmony, rhythm, and timbre. Low Pass Filter is a show about the nature of this thing we call music, how it functions in people's lives, how it's contextualized by society, and why we find certain music meaningful. This is Low Pass Filter. Greetings and salutations, and welcome to another episode of Low Pass Filter. This is a show where we talk about music and what it means in our lives. My name is Mateo and Noche, and I'm joined, as always, by Bandon Wayne.
Hello.
How you doing?
Doing okay.
Good.
Top of the morning to you.
Top of the morning, and the rest of the day to you, sir.
Thank you.
It's been a minute. We've kind of been out for a while.
It's been a couple minutes.
I know our all 8 of our subscribers have been complaining loudly that
They're blaring.
what the heck happened to you guys? But life takes over, and you just go, like the dead fish. You go with the flow.
You go with the flow. I think our past episodes are worth rewatching.
They are. So we've got quite of a stock of them now. I think there's I want to say there's 24 or 5 or 6 or something like this. And we've been doing this since COVID time. Yeah.
What seems weird now.
It does seem weird. Yeah.
To some people, COVID ended just a few weeks ago, and others it's towards the end of 2020, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody last night who just had it, so it hasn't officially ended for everybody, but
I guess just the
pandemic is kind of ebbed.
It has, for sure.
Well, as always, we pick a topic and then we expand or expound upon it. And this time, we've decided to dip our toes into classical music.
Just dipping a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, just like, fine wines, I'm sort of a dilettante. I don't know what it is, but I know when I like it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I know when I like some classical music.
Yeah. And, classical music has gone through a lot of different sort of wraps. There was a time when it was more important than it is today. And I feel like a lot of that has to do with music education and the lack thereof for a lot of young people who don't get introduced to music and musical instruments and that sort of thing. And they end up, not really knowing anything about it or caring that much, I guess.
Yeah. In the scope of 20th century music and popular music, post rock and roll era music, classical it can sound overwhelming. It can be this kind of ancient sounding thing, or the language of classical music is just kind of withered away, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was a time in this country, at least, when much like novelists, like classical conductors were kind of celebrities, Leonard Bernstein and Aaron Copland and, people like that were revered, and even, people that were not necessarily fans of classical music would at least know the name and knew they were important people somehow. And they used to do, back when radio was a big deal, they would do coast-to-coast broadcasts of like the NBC orchestra with, forget the conductor's name now. See, it's even me. I don't even know who it was. But anyway, at one time it was a bigger deal than it is today.
Yeah. Just kind of been superseded, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Although it's still there bubbling under, there are still lots of symphony orchestras. Eureka here has its own symphony orchestra. I know because I've set up the chairs for it. And so there is there is a loyal base of people
There are a few
who
cultured people left
yeah,
in the world.
yeah,
I actually, just sold a couple classical CDs to Trevor Dunn, the
really.
bass player
Well,
for Mr. Bungle.
you would
They
expect that Trevor would
He was visiting, and he popped in, and he surprisingly found what he was looking for.
wow.
So,
Okay. Well, you wouldn't I would expect that of him, I think, because he has a very eclectic and
oh, yeah.
broad, sort of musical taste and experience and,
Yeah, very much.
so I can see him delving into that. You can you dish on what he bought? Do you remember?
No, it
Okay.
was like
All right.
a particular composer. He found a couple CDs.
Okay.
I don't know if he wants me dishing about him, but
Okay, well, we won't. We'll,
I was putting
say no more.
yeah, I was just trying to, put it into a contemporary context,
Yeah.
you know?
I think what you're saying is that there are plenty of hip people that
Yeah,
dig it, right?
indeed.
But in the case of Trevor, mom's the word and Bob's your uncle. Hmm. So, yeah, so I mean, I'll just, go into my experience, I think, with it, again, going back to school, is playing trumpet in a concert band and being introduced to a lot of these pieces. And, back then, junior high school or elementary school, there was music was a part of your education, and it
Right.
was deemed to be important. And so you got introduced to a lot of these, uh, you know, of the 3 Bs, as I like to call them, Bach, Beethoven, and Brahms,
Yeah,
uh, those composers that, a lot of the European, white dudes, that, everybody, seems to know or can hum one of their tunes or the da 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 das and the, that sort of stuff. So and so as a result of that, I kind of developed a for it, and we'll talk about why, what led to that, some of the pieces that led to that. But
sure. Yeah. I will say up front, I don't have a lot of classical, in my music vocabulary, although, like you said, that there's some stuff that you can't deny its cultural impact, or it just seeps in, and when you're young, you hear certain pieces connected to certain things, and some of that stuff is so dynamic and dramatic that it really edges into you.
yeah,
Um,
and I should hasten to mention Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny and cartoons have a lot to do with recognizing
yeah, yeah,
um, classical music pieces and putting it in your vocabulary.
yeah. And I watched a lot of Bugs Bunny as a kid.
Me too.
Um, yeah, yeah.
And also, the other thing that occurred to me is my mom had a record player, and she had the 45s, and one of them was a classical 45 of the William Tell Overture.
Okay.
And I like to, make that go as fast as it could possibly go. I would say, go like that. And it's even better in reverse.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So,
Any messages in there?
tune me on, dead man. No, no messages, but it kind of sparks something there, perversely.
That's awesome. Well, you have your notes
I do.
as usual.
Got the clipboard.
So where do those notes begin?
It begins with Eric Satie, and I'm going to mispronounce this. So, if any of you speak French, you can write in the comments what it's actually supposed to be pronounced as. But uh, Gnosines, number one,
Okay.
is that close? Do you think
Yes.
it starts with a G? I think the G is silent. But anyway, Eric Satie, really interesting dude. He studied at the Paris Conservatory in the late 19th century. He was a failure, basically. He got kicked out of the conservatory because he wasn't, I don't know, wasn't performing up to par. Um, but he kept at it. He entered another conservatory in which he did better, but he eventually led a group of composers called Les Six,
Okay.
and that include and so he really started a movement of impressionistic music, and of course, at the time, the impressionist painters, were big, and there were radical changes in art to begin with at the end of the 19th century. But he really inspired people like Claude Debussy and Maurice Ravel, kind of a
Okay.
couple of my favorite composers right there. But this Ganes's or Giacchini's number one um, is a piano composition, and he did a lot of these. There's a whole suite of these, um, but for me, it's just a really unearthly music and just kind of mind bending
Interesting.
tonalities. And I mean, if you look at the music on the paper, you would see things like play freely. There'd be actually words, written there on how you're supposed to
Okay.
and how you're supposed to feel while you're playing it, darkly or sadly or what have you. So to me, there's something that when I hear these pieces, it just kind of
Yeah.
does a little thing in the back of my head.
I'm glad you said impressionistic. I hadn't framed it that way in my mind. Not an expert, but I have listened to some Satie over the years. Um, One thing I notice is that his work seems to transcend a bit outside of the sort of rigid space of listening to classical music. Um, People who aren't necessarily deeply interested in classical have found something in his work, um, kind of maybe an avant-garde sense. But I was listening to some. I don't know if it's indicative of all his work, but I was getting this feeling of like, kind of like taking a walk without direction,
Mhm.
without knowing exactly where you're going. So I guess that kind of connects with the idea of impressionism
Right.
in his works. So that was kind of the best way I could describe some of the feeling of the movement of the melody, or the, as you said, kind of playfulness in the expression of notes.
Yeah, it's very free and sort of strange, um, and I just, the best music is evocative and it makes you feel something, and this music really makes me feel something. I highly recommend it.
That's awesome. Yeah, Eric Satie,
Yeah,
and that
and I think you have some.
I put something on there,
Yeah,
on my Spotify playlist, which I realized, I didn't realize I picked a recording that was only 47 seconds long.
right.
I don't know
Yeah.
what the case with that is. I think that
Oh
was a
yeah,
mistake. I was just trying to
Les
grab.
Motifs du Printemps. 47 seconds.
I was hasty, I guess. I was looking up some
Well,
E, and
maybe the composer was hasty.
I don't know. I thought I was just grabbing a representation of his work, which turned out to be a very minimal pair.
Well,
But
I mean, maybe it is a representation. It is, so, yeah. It doesn't have to be an hour long, right? Mm, yeah.
it's not a sonata, that's for sure.
What did you have? What's your first one?
Well, I don't have them in a particular order. I suppose I could mention Firebird Suite by
Yes.
Stravinsky.
Mhm.
That's possibly one of the most referenced and known pieces of classical music.
Right.
Um, Something I heard my mother refer to, or I think when I was little, she probably was playing cassette tapes, early days of cassettes, and yeah, my mother played flute, and so she had some favorite pieces, and that one came up later as I discovered Frank Zappa. Stravinsky was referred to quite a bit.
Mhm.
He even performed little fragments of some Stravinsky pieces. Um, so that one, it's kind of like an epic progressive rock song in a way.
Mhm. And maybe inspired some of the progressive rock
Yeah, would
musicians.
not be surprised. Yeah. Something I notice in some of Stravinsky's work is the quiet parts before these big, massive, dramatic, full orchestra, um, timpanis and bright brass and
Mhm.
stuff is that there'll be these segments that are almost inaudible, like just very soft,
Dynamics, they call that.
very very much
Yeah.
hitting the extremes of the dynamic spectrum. So on a recording, if you're listening at regular volume, some of it may dip down to where you wonder if it stopped.
Right.
But really, it's just sort of a calm before a storm sort of a thing, and there's a sense of darkness, but then you'll have these passages that feel almost like that the clouds have moved or almost a happy resolve, and some of it almost sounds like what you might hear in the background of a soap opera or something, describing kind of the mood of the scene.
Right.
Um, but then that ties into how classical music has affected cinema, uh, you know, as
Right.
long as it's been around.
Well, the Firebird Suite, of course, I think is a ballet,
Oh, okay, yeah.
and, when it premiered, there was a dancer called Nijinsky, whose dance scandalized,
Wow.
Paris, and people were actually trying to shout down the performance and were upset and
Wow.
got up and left, and, it caused a big ruckus basically, which of course made the piece and the ballet all the more popular,
Yeah.
as things like that tend to do, they then everybody wanted to see the scandalous ballet.
What is this about?
Um, and Nijinsky, like Satie in a lot of ways, is one of those people where the tonality really has it's a sort of a tonal shift from what we consider to be classical music. There's like a lot of the devil's, tritone chords in there, seventh and ninth and 11th chords, and all the kind of things that you would have got burned at the stake, for in a couple centuries before that. But yeah, that's a good one. And that brings us up to our first break. It just, the time just zips by. Um,
It's how heavy classical music can
yeah, it
be.
is.
Need a
Yeah.
breather here.
You're sitting there, you're listening to the Firebird Suite, and the next thing you know, it's time for bed. But in our case, it's just time for a break. We'll be right back with some more low pass filter right after this. Hello and welcome back to Low Pass Filter. Bandon Wayne there, Mateo Noche over here, and we are talking classical music.
Biting off more than we can chew.
That's right. We're out of our depth.
We're rocking books after all.
That's right. But
But
that's never stopped us before. So why should it stop us now?
no.
So we talked about Stravinsky. We talked about the dynamics of that and the influence on rock and roll. And I think the next one on my list is a really good example of that, and that's Gustav Holst's Mars Bringer of War.
Wow.
I don't think there's another classical piece that is more rock and roll than this.
Okay.
It is, it just storms in. It's so dynamic. It so evocative. It really is a sort of a thrilling piece of music, and I feel like when you listen to things like Yes is Close to the Edge, or certain things by Rush or other progressive rock bands, you know that they were raised on this, especially the English musicians, because Gustav Holst was an English composer, um, and who I first came across of the Suite for Concert band was like a standby thing that we played in high school and junior high school. Um, but I remember, I still to this day remember the first time I heard this.
Yeah.
I was listening to KUSC, which would use no longer exists, folks, on an AM radio in my car,
Wow.
driving to work. When I was in college, I worked at a Shell station, and I was driving out to La Puente. This came on the radio. I literally had to pull over. I literally pulled over because I was like, what in the heck is this piece of music, right? And I mean, to this day, I mean, the whole
Already sold. I need to listen to this.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Familiar.
So the planets this is from a school
That's
called
what I
the
was
planets,
asking.
right?
Yes.
And
Okay.
this is about Mars, but all of them are great. All Each piece is great, but this one is a standout. And I think just from the extent of, if people think that classical music is just sort of limp and staid and kind of boring and gift shop music, I like to call it sometimes, because you'll hear that at a gift shop. This is the polar opposite of that. This is just comes storming in, is in your face, and it's really thrilling.
Yeah. That sounds thrilling. You've made it sound quite
Did I sell it?
quite exciting.
Can I sell it?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I need to listen to that. I've known of Holst the Planets as um, uh, a collection of movements or something, I suppose. I'm not too familiar. I do really like this artist named Tomita,
Yes.
who sort of reimagines in a way, or puts classical music into a more 70s electronic context kind of. And so I'm somewhat familiar from that reference. But
Well, back when CDs were new, most of you kids out there may not even know what a CD is now. But at one time they were the new thing, and when I got my first CD player, this was like literally the first CD I bought.
nice. Classical
So
music is a great way to test your sound system too.
it is.
You know?
Yeah, Leonard Bernstein's was the conductor on that, and
Oh,
it
good.
was fantastic.
Yeah,
New York Philharmonic. So,
that's awesome. I will be checking that out. Do I have anything else?
well, you better. Otherwise, it's going to be a very short show.
I'm trying. How do I follow that? I guess I was one of my favorite classical pieces is Bolero by
Yes.
Maurice Ravel. Um, Probably in today's day and age, a pretty recognizable piece. Um, I, for some reason, find the the feeling and energy of this piece to be so comforting that I really enjoy finding new performances of it,
Mhm.
or just uh, any performance I come across that's different from any I already have. They don't differ vastly, but just hearing a different orchestra and conductor
Mhm.
render this piece. So I probably have a couple dozen
Wow.
in my collection that I've checked out, and it's a song that or a piece of music that comes in very softly, and it's one long crescendo basically.
That's right.
So to hear how that crescendo is kind of controlled, how long they kind of keep the tension. So it generally varies from about 16 to 18 minutes,
Mhm.
depending on the performance. I read a while back that when it came out, it was I'm sorry, was reviewed as kind of a trite, sort of bubblegummy type thing at the time,
Right.
kind of considered fluff.
What you would have been talking about in the early teens of the last century.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think since then it's become a pretty revered piece of music,
Well, at
obviously.
one point, this was known as makeout music.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, because like the swinging bachelor would put this on the hi-fi, while he was on the make
the
for.
main melody of it.
It's just like it builds to a climax, and so
Right,
uh,
right. Yeah,
so it gets things get hotter as it goes along, and I think that was the soundtrack for some of the maybe the mid-century.
yeah. I would think it would go beyond making out.
Yeah, no, totally. That would be the hopes of any of the swing bachelor that put it on the hi-fi.
Well, it has a marching rhythm underneath it,
Yeah.
um, but then this really kind of early 20th century melody. It's really sweet kind of melody, but the hook of it, how do you describe it?
Kind of sinuous, maybe.
Yes, it's not exactly a round, but it keeps
Yeah.
kind of overlapping.
The leitmotif, as they call it, just
Yeah,
like kind of runs through the entire thing.
yeah, and it just builds and builds, and then you have this
Kind of,
big
yeah.
crescendo, all the timpanis, and
Yeah.
I just love it. It's maybe a little bit novel, my 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 interest in that song, but yeah, it just spoke to me in a way that I would like to hear every version of this I can. And
Yeah. Well, Maurice Ravel, of course, I love basically everything he's ever done. It's
all right,
fantastic. He's a fantastic, or was a fantastic composer, and well worth checking
yeah,
out there. Okay, so I the next one I have is it's just a piece from a composer named Grofe, Grofe, or Grofe. I don't
hmm,
know. You you folks can tell me because I'm sure I've mispronounced it. But anyway, it's from something called the Grand Canyon Suite,
oh wow,
number 3, and the song is called "On the Trail."
okay,
And this is, I think an example of humor in music, and just and what it is essentially it's um, about a trip down the Grand Canyon with pack mules,
yeah,
and just sort of the music sort of imitates their loping down the hill. It's a very sunny uh, piece of music,
interesting,
and it never fails to bring a smile to my face, and really it's very uplifting, and just very fun. And this I have the memory I the first time I ever heard it was so I'm a band geek, so I went to band camp, you know um so we they would play this in the morning to wake the campers up.
okay,
They play it over the PA system.
wow,
So but I just remember waking up to that, and just a one
yeah.
it's a good piece of music to wake up to.
Well, and that's an experience that's going to cause that music to stick with you. Um, that's interesting.
And if you've ever been to Disneyland, they have a Grand Canyon diorama.
Okay,
Uh, People probably don't look at this kind of stuff anymore because it's really, kind of mid-century. But anyway, that is the theme music for that whole diorama.
wow,
Yeah.
I haven't noticed that at Disneyland. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with the Brady Bunch,
Okay.
and there's an episode of the Brady Bunch where the family takes a trip to
To
the
the Grand
Grand
Canyon.
Canyon.
Yeah.
I still have not been to the Grand Canyon, but
Really?
yeah, but because of that episode, I've always thought I want to visit the Grand Canyon someday.
Well, I suggest when you go to the Grand Canyon, you take this piece of music along with you, and it will be
Yeah,
inspiring.
I believe there were some pack mules involved in
Yeah,
the family exploring. Of course, some dramatic
right.
situation occurs, but I wonder if they use that music in the episode.
I don't remember that. I think I would have remembered
Yeah,
that,
probably not, though.
but they should have.
Yeah.
If they get a do-over, that's what's going to happen.
Oh, man. Yeah, I still have not been there.
Yeah, it's a great experience. I went there on my honeymoon,
Oh, that's awesome.
so it's a worth it. And both the North and South Rim are
Yeah.
great places to visit. So I suggest
Hopefully I'll make it.
you will you'll make it, and it's really not that far away. Honestly,
Right.
it's not like it's on the other side of the
Couple
country.
states
Right?
away.
What's that?
Couple states away.
A couple states away.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. All right. Well, we're going to get you there. We're going to go, and you're going to listen to Grove on the trail
Yeah.
when we get there.
That sounds good.
What's up next?
Well, okay. I got a couple Beethovens on there.
All right. Can't go wrong.
A couple of the big ones.
Can't go wrong with that.
I put Ode to Joy and Symphony.
A little bit of the old Ludwig van.
Yeah. Symphony number 5.
Okay.
The 5th Symphony.
Yeah.
Those are instantly recognizable. Since television and movies, he must have heard them.
Of course.
It would be
hard to escape them. Yeah.
and kind of similar to the Stravinsky sense of dynamics and big, loud, bombastic passages and dramatic refrains and stuff.
Yeah. Beethoven sort of started off the romantic movement of music.
Okay.
He kind of came out of, at the beginning of the 19th century is really what we're talking about for him. And so romanticism really started a little bit later, but he sort of engendered that, And
Interesting.
I've actually been to, I think it is his birth house in Bonn in Germany.
Wow.
It's a museum, of course. Well, a very long time ago, but yeah. So I've actually seen where the dude sprang forth from.
Started at a young age.
Yeah, I'm not really sure of what his origin stories were, but of course he famously went deaf. There's a movie called Immortal Beloved that sort of chronicles his descent into madness, if you will.
I've not seen that film for some reason, but yeah, eccentric, crazed.
Yeah, he got he as he started losing his hearing, he really started to kind of go off the rails, but he still managed to compose somehow, even though he was eventually completely deaf, and because he heard it in his head, and he could put it down on paper.
Yeah.
And a difficult guy, but created a lot of beautiful music.
A lot of creatives can be difficult. So something about classical music, and of course not only classical music, any music before the era of recording, capturing music to something that it can be played back on. You had to be where the music was taking place to experience it.
That's right.
For the most part, we think of classical music as being an upper crust of society kind of music as compared to indigenous music or folk music. So that is maybe a point worth noting.
Yeah, I mean, it was the only game in town, really, as far as music that could be widely disseminated. You could get the manuscript and you could play it on your piano.
Yeah.
Orchestras could get the score and perform it all over the world.
Yeah.
That would be a way of kind of the very primitive radio for of the day, of the internet of the day, would be physical copies of the score and people performing it in different places.
A lot of theaters were probably designed to present classical music.
Yeah.
Classical music, theater, the physical dynamic of the space. And a lot of those theaters exist to this day.
Yes.
But you had to be able to get a ticket to get in to see it, hear it.
The hottest ticket in town.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So it's a far cry from a Taylor Swift concert.
Well, he was probably the Taylor Swift of his era, in a lot of ways. But yeah, Beethoven is good, and I have a friend's wife who's very likes the Germanic, kind of composers like Beethoven and Brahms and Bach and these people, that's like the best music. And so I get into arguments with her about it because I like the French Impressionists, the French music. And so the one I have next is Claude Debussy,
Yeah.
Clair de Lune,
Yeah.
which is a piano piece, originally called Promenade Sentimentale. And it comes from a name by a poet named Paul Verlaine, and it means moonlight in French. And it's kind of everywhere. It's been used in commercials.
Yeah.
It's been used in movies. It's one of those classical pieces that kind of become shorthand for sentimentality and reverie and all that sort of thing. But it really, again, we talked about this in the past in the show. Is like the best music is the music that makes you feel something and makes you, um, you know, it's evocative and makes you, picture things and feel things. And this music for me really, every time I feel it, it's just like it's so lovely and so it's like kind of it's like an embrace. Now, it's kind of like a warm embrace, and just like.
I feel like I have a melody running through my head, but I'm not sure if it's that one or not. But I think I know which piece of music we're talking about. Certainly know the title of that piece, and I grew up with some awareness of it.
Well, you folks out there in TV land at least can find our Spotify playlists, and you guys can go and sample each one of these pieces and see what you think about it. I encourage you to do that. And with that, we are at break number 2. So we're going to take a quick powder here, get our powdered wigs on.
Redo our rouge.
That's right. And maybe hit up the snuff box and be back with a little bit of low pass filter, a little bit more in just a moment. Welcome back to Low Pass Filter. Mateo Noche here. Bandon Wayne right over there.
I'm right here.
He's right here. The folks on TV can see that. You folks on radio, you'll just have to take our word for it. We're talking classical music, right? It's not classic rock. Hey, not classic rock, it's classical music.
We are classical nerds. Maybe.
We fit the classical definition of a nerd.
We're actually exploring what we know of classical music.
That's right.
And
Yeah, we're either demonstrating our knowledge or ignorance.
yeah,
Maybe a little bit of both
maybe
at the
to
same
get
time.
ourselves a little more excited for it. I think Matt has a bit of a deeper connection than myself, but you know, we love music of all kinds.
Yeah.
And so, like he said at the beginning of the show, we know what we like. When you hear something that moves you, it doesn't matter what style of music it is. But classical music is oftentimes kind of cordoned off into this deep study of music that predates a lot of what we know as people of the mid-century and forward rock and roll era.
Well, ironically, they used to call it long hair music.
Really?
Yes. Because various composers, came out of an era where they wore their hair long, and
Right. Wow.
and so even before rock and roll,
Well, the hippies took that over.
the hippies did take that on, but yeah, long hair music at some point. What else do you have for us?
Well, I only have a couple things left on my list, and I guess I was kind of jumping into a neoclassical or post-classical
Okay.
kind of realm, and I have a piece by Philip Glass, who, do we consider him a classical composer? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
Kind
yeah,
of an avant-gardist.
avant-garde for sure. But I think if you went to the classical section, you'd find him in there.
I wouldn't know where else to put him.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
but he's a modern classical
Yeah, he was a
composer.
modernist, and I put Dance Number One, which I think, if you know his music, is one of his most known pieces.
Yeah,
And it's, how do you describe it? It's
kinetic, I guess.
yeah, very good descriptor for it. And it's kind of a looping
Mhm.
phrase that just keeps, I don't even know if it's a phrase. It's kind of like water running. It's like just keeps going, but it's somehow mutating in and of itself. It's very entrancing. And I've listened to a fair bit of his stuff along those lines, and I find it captivating and stimulating in some way. So,
Yeah. Well, since you mentioned modern composers, I have John Adams.
okay.
John Adams, that is, The Chairman Dances, which is from an opera called Nixon in China.
Okay.
And another one of those fun and kinetic, you got Chairman Mao and Pat Nixon doing a dance out there, so,
Wow.
I mean, obviously the libretto, if you will, is very tongue in cheek and, fanciful, but it's the same sort of feeling, I think, as Philip Glass, and composers like Steve Reich is another one of those people who do this kind of very kinetic and interesting modern music.
That's a great word for it. I hadn't conceived of it that way. Yeah. The composer you just mentioned, I'd never heard of. Not familiar with that at all.
Yeah, yeah. And then just another one of my personal favorites is early music, which is music of the Renaissance, and which involves lutes, and drum horns and all kinds of crazy stuff, but mostly lutes and those sorts of string viola da gamba,
Yeah.
which is kind of a precursor of the cello. And I have something called, I'm going to mangle this, folks, so get ready for this, La Trattoria Saltareo. And it's one of my favorite performers is a lady named Shirley Rumsey, who's an English lutenist.
Wow.
She has a group called Kitara with a guy named Christopher Wilson,
Okay.
and they play a lot of this repertory. There's a great YouTube channel, I can't think of it right now, that I really dig, of this Italian lutenist who does these ensemble pieces and stuff. But I like to use it if I'm like doing art or creating somehow or reading. And when my kids were little, we would do like art projects and stuff, and I would put this on, and it
Yeah.
was just like that kind of music that can blend into the background, but also, it's just very wonderful and mysterious.
Yeah.
Um, so
And that uh, came out of the Renaissance period
that's right. Yeah.
piece.
1505 when this
Wow.
work was published. So that was a minute ago.
Yeah.
And
Do we have an idea of when classical music sort of officially comes into?
well, I think the music that we would consider to be classical probably, started with the Renaissance, I would say. Um, you know, I think the music that we really identify as classical probably started happening in the late 18th and early 19th century.
Yeah.
You know, um, so these forms of music, I mean, they feel ancient by comparison. Uh, but there used to be just plain song, which was just like monks, kind of doing, chant and stuff like that. And then when polyphony, which means, like harmony and
Yeah.
all that started coming in, I mean, and that wasn't really until the Renaissance.
Okay.
That was when it was even allowed, because the church controlled music. Up to that point, really, music wasn't for the consumption of the average person. It was for going to church and, or getting with God, so it really wasn't until civilization developed to the point where people had leisure time and they could consume music, that classical music or proto-classical or whatever started coming along. And it wasn't just all about church music.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it's, intense thinking of in kind of an anthropological context.
Yeah.
How music has evolved with humanity and civilization, or how humanity and civilization has evolved along with music.
Now,
But so we're talking about 500 years ago,
yes.
give or take, till now.
Yeah.
And
A lot of water over the dam since then, but it's still great music. And the lute is a really interesting instrument. I mean, there are lots of different forms of them. A lot of them, some of them have 10 strings, some of them have, more, they have sympathetic strings
yeah,
that just sort of ring out when you play the other strings, and some are smaller, and stuff like
a
that.
precursor to a guitar, could you say?
It really is. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what the guitar evolved out of a lute.
Yeah.
So
That's a
what,
whole other thing too, just maybe something worth talking about on another episode, but the technology in musical instruments.
okay, I'm making a note of that for our next,
Something worth
for our,
talking about.
maybe our next one will be that.
But anyhow, yeah. The only other thing I wanted to mention in my scope of classical music is Peaches and Regalia by Frank Zappa,
Okay.
which is not his most epic neoclassical work, but it's very digestible. And if you want an easy bite of how Frank Zappa worked that into his milieu of modern music.
Yeah, and of course, people think of Zappa as a rock musician, which of course he was. But it wasn't all. Watch out where the Huskies go. Don't you eat the yellow snow. Right? He was a serious composer and a demanding taskmaster as a musician, and wrote classical pieces. I don't know. There's a great YouTube video of him on the Steve Allen show playing a bicycle. Have you
Yeah, that was his very early days. And I guess then he was kind of more of an avant-gardist.
Yeah.
Um, but of course he's Frank Zappa, so he's his own unique take on anything. But yeah, what was that, 1965, 66 or something? Uh, but he did really love to compose, and uh, I always say Varice. How do you say it?
Yep. Right.
Was one of his biggest influences. And he liked.
That's another one like Satie that, we used unusual, not only time signatures and tonalities, but like instruments, like, trash can lids or, whistles, and stuff like that. Written into his music.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. So you could see how Frank Zappa would be very influenced by that.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Good one. Well, along those lines, I had on my list the Kronos Quartet,
There you go.
which is very well. They've been at it for 50 years, but they're a string quartet. They played classical music, but they also cover popular music, and so I have their cover of Purple Haze,
Oh, nice.
which is a really great cover.
Yeah.
And it's kind of become a thing now. There's a band called Apocalyptica that does, you know, um,
Yeah, they got noticed from doing Metallica.
Metallica covers, yeah.
Uh,
Which is four dudes playing cellos doing Metallica covers, and it's actually pretty wretched. Yeah,
yeah.
I like it. Well, we're getting up towards the end. Well, I'll just end on another one of those really evocative pieces of music for me was Antonio Vivaldi's "The Four Seasons," and these particularly the one out of that suite, the Winter
Okay.
Suite.
Also, one of the more ubiquitous, timeless pieces of classical music.
Gets up used in a lot of movies, a lot of commercials. Um, and Vivaldi was pretty crazy. He wrote over 500 concertos
Wow.
and 46 operas. The dude, you know, never slept basically. But this is another one of those really evocative pieces of music that, for me anyway, it really captures the idea of winter, and, you know, just really good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Um, Even frightening, and dark, the stuff that happens in winter, storms and cold and all that kind of stuff. And you get that in the piece of music.
Yeah. Well, also when you're writing for an orchestra as opposed to a smaller group, a quartet, or I'll say a, a, a chamber group or something, you, the 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 palette that you have to work with
Yeah.
is much more vast than what we think of in contemporary music. So to be able to paint with sound to create uh, a mood or emotion or a storyline is just feels deeper, and the vocabulary is deeper, and the tonal dynamics and all of that stuff.
Plus, you're doing it with a large group of people,
Yeah.
Us in the rock world, if we get like 6 people in a rock band, that's like a huge band. But if you can be in an orchestra that has 50 or 60 members, and then if there's you talked about Beethoven, they have like Ode to Joy as a chorale,
Right.
so there's another 70 singers, involved in that. So this is a group activity, and it's just a really great example of people working together and making something beautiful.
I think also if you're used to music from the rock, sort of the line of where rock and popular music coming out of that exists, it is a massive wall of sound, classical music, a lot of it, and that can be very intimidating.
Yeah.
It, it, it hits your senses in such a intense way that I think a lot of us that didn't grow up raised on it or taught to appreciate it, it's kind of like, what the heck is happening here? um, so it is a music that a lot of people tend to study. You know what I mean? Become students of it and learn to appreciate it more, almost more from an academic sense than pop music. So
Well, I mean, of course, pop music is at least in the last, 30 years or maybe a little bit more, has really become centered around the singer-songwriter. So we're really talking about one person's vision, one person's performance, all that sort of thing, kind of feeds into the American individualism sort of thing. So when you get to classical music, which involves huge groups of performers, often, not always, but sometimes, it's kind of foreign, I think, to people. And it's just, it's not something that lends itself to, that Taylor Swift sort of adulation either. You can't, when you've got 50 people, you can't like a laser beam in on a performer, maybe a conductor, but, uh, it, it's hard to,
yeah,
kind of pin yourself to it, right?
there
Exactly.
are some rock star conductors in the world.
There are. There are. Uh, and yeah. But just to sum up, I guess, because we're at that point of the show where we do the summing up. Um, you know, you don't have to know everything. I think that's another thing that people think it's like I have to, like you were saying, like I have to study this. I have to know, and I'm going to look stupid if I don't know who, who Maurice Ravel was or what have you. And I really think that's not the way to go about it. I think it's like if it moves you and if it's interesting,
But if you have ever conversed with someone who primarily only listens to classical music,
oh yeah.
they're very serious about it.
Well, yeah, and there's that snob factor too.
Not to put anybody down, but
Yeah, I'm not sure it's as big as it once was. I think a lot of the snobs have died off, but yeah, there is a snobbery to it. Like rock music isn't real music. That in the beginning of rock music, that was huge. There was still a sort of a hangover, and people said you're not really a serious musician if you do playing that kind of music. And classical was the serious, educated, cultured. You hear the word culture and all that sort of thing.
yeah.
Um, and I think a lot of that has fallen away, mainly because classical doesn't have the power that once had, and the people that might have told you that it's better have kind of gone by the wayside, and have been chastised by the huge success of popular music of the popular music of day of rock and roll, and other forms of music have sort of taken away from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't mean that it's not still good.
No. And I think it will continue to live on.
It will. Yeah.
Ah.
All right. Well, I think that's gonna do it for us this time out. As always, you can find our Spotify playlist down here in the doodly doo right down below our visages. And if you like and subscribe and leave a comment and all that kind of stuff, we appreciate it. And now we've been kind of lax on our output, and that's not what YouTube wants. We're not feeding the algorithm, folks. But we'll work on that. We've there's always ideas percolating in the background, and
Yeah.
we'll get back to that.
We will be back with who knows what topic.
Who knows what else we'll come up
but
with.
we'll come up with something.
Bandon, thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks.
As always, I enjoy our conversation.
Slogging it out with me.
Yeah, I would rather not do anything else at this very moment than slog it out with you. Thanks for watching and listening to Low Cost Filter, and we'll see you next time.